The Duke of Sussex will be returning to the United Kingdom by necessity, not by choice. This is not a family reunion, it is the legal consequence of his actions. The monarchy acknowledges his return but will not provide shelter, protection, or political advocacy under any form of diplomatic privilege. His departure from the United States was not voluntary. To everyone. 18:6. Official statement from Buckingham Palace, issued at 8 GMT, the 28th of January, 2026. It was a statement like no other. Blunt, clinical, and devastating in its finality. Prince Harry has been deported from the United States and is returning to Britain, stripped of status, support, and legal leverage. Within moments of its release, the official communiqué ricocheted across global headlines. What had been swirling in rumor for months had finally crystallized into institutional reality. And unlike past family disputes that simmered under the sheen of royal formality, this time the monarchy spoke with military precision and moral distance. Harry has lost everything, and he is coming home not as a prince but as a problem. The crux of the collapse centers around the revocation of Prince Harry's O1 visa, an elite U.S. immigration status granted only to individuals with extraordinary ability in fields like the arts, sciences, athletics, or business. For nearly 6 years, Harry had relied on the O1 to build a new identity. Media producer, mental health advocate, commercial brand. But in the final quarter of 2025, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, launched a quiet investigation following multiple congressional inquiries into high-profile abuse of immigration pathways. The trigger? Harry's own words. In his 2023 memoir, Spare, Harry admitted to long-term drug use, cocaine, magic mushrooms, marijuana, detailing multiple instances from his teen years through adulthood. At the time, those admissions were framed as cathartic, honest, and even healing. But to U.S. immigration officials, they were something else entirely. Confessions. Under INA Section 212, 2A, E, Nen, any foreign national who admits to violating controlled substance laws may be deemed inadmissible or deportable even without a criminal conviction. For O1 visa holders, the standards are higher. Continuous legal compliance, sustained proof of extraordinary achievement, and an active U.S. base sponsor are mandatory. By late November 2025, all three pillars had crumbled. Netflix had severed ties. Spotify was in arbitration. Meghan's agency WME had declined to renew its joint talent representation of the couple. Their production company Arcuel was in limbo. And most damningly, no legal entity was willing to stand as Harry's visa sponsor during his reapplication. His immigration status collapsed. By the 10th of January 2026, DHS issued a Notice to Appear, NTA, the equivalent of a civil removal order, giving Harry 10 business days to leave voluntarily or face full deportation proceedings. Appeals failed. Political strings were pulled. Emergency filings went nowhere. And just after midnight on January 26, Prince Harry boarded a commercial British Airways flight under diplomatic escort. The man who once walked behind his mother's coffin, guarded by elite protection, was now processed like a civilian and placed in Seat 2A of Flight BA 268 from LAX to Heathrow. The forced departure wasn't just legal, it was logistical. The luxury Montecito estate, once their self-declared sanctuary, had become a trap. According to court filings first reported by the Los Angeles Times, Harry and Meghan had defaulted on 2 consecutive mortgage payments to First Republic Bank, now a subsidiary of JP Morgan. The property purchased for $14.65 million in 2020 with a $9.5 million loan was placed into pre-foreclosure proceedings on the 8th of January 2026. With no new U.S. income stream, no sponsor, and millions owed in civil liabilities, including an estimated $3.6 million debt to Tyler Perry for unpaid private security and transport services, the Duke was out of time, out of money, and out of options. Attempts to convert his O1 status to a tourist visa, B2, were blocked by DHS, citing pending inadmissibility concerns and ongoing financial instability. A move to Canada was denied under bilateral visa intelligence sharing. No EU nation extended private asylum. The media speculation about fleeing to Botswana, Argentina, or even a remote island in the Pacific was fantasy. There was only one place left for him to go. The return to Britain is not being framed as a welcome. It is being treated as a containment protocol. As part of Operation Iron Gate, a counterintelligence initiative reportedly spearheaded by Prince William and endorsed by Princess Anne, Prince Harry is to be processed at Heathrow Airport like any other foreign national flagged for risk. There will be no diplomatic suite, no border force bypass, no palace convoy. Sources within the Home Office confirmed that Frogmore Cottage's lease was terminated on January 15, and all security clearances associated with Harry's former addresses have been rescinded. His presence in Britain is classified as unofficial, unprotected, and unaffiliated. He no longer belongs to the system, and the system no longer protects him. The irony is razor sharp. The very book that was supposed to liberate Prince Harry Spare ultimately became the instrument of his downfall. What was marketed as a confessional memoir, a vulnerable portrait of a wounded royal, was quietly reclassified behind closed doors in Washington, a legal admission. In January 2023, Spare made headlines for its raw honesty. Harry wrote of snorting cocaine as a teenager, smoking marijuana in the gardens of Kensington Palace, and ingesting psychedelic mushrooms in California, describing in vivid detail a hallucination involving a talking toilet bowl. To many readers, it was sensational. To U.S. immigration officials, it was evidence. Under U.S. immigration law, particularly INA, Section 212, 2AE2, any foreign national who admits to violating laws relating to controlled substances is inadmissible, even if the crimes were committed abroad and never led to conviction. For most, such technicalities go unnoticed, but Harry wasn't most. He was an O-1 visa holder, an immigration status reserved for individuals with extraordinary ability in a specific field. While the term is often stretched to accommodate celebrities, the requirements are real and strict. Sustained acclaim or a proven record of distinction. Ongoing activity in their field, for example, producing, speaking engagements, creative output. Active sponsorship from a U.S. based organization or agency. Moral character compatibility, as interpreted by immigration authorities. In 2020, Netflix and Spotify offered enough institutional weight to push Harry and Meghan's applications through. But by late 2025, the narrative had shifted. Spotify canceled Archetypes. Netflix shelved all but one production. The couple's agency, WME, quietly pulled back support, citing non-aligned strategic priorities. Without an active sponsor, and with a public track record of admitted drug use, Harry's legal ground crumbled. He had not only lost his extraordinary platform, he had provided written, signed testimony against himself. In December 2025, Meghan's legal team filed a last-ditch appeal to convert Harry's O1 into a B2 tourist visa, a stopgap solution that would have allowed him to remain in the U.S. for up to 6 months per year, though without work privileges or long-term status. But even that was denied. The DHS rejection letter, leaked to The Guardian, cited serious doubts regarding the petitioner's financial independence, ongoing litigation, public admissions of prior unlawful conduct, and insufficient documentary evidence of sustained extraordinary activity in the past 12 months. In other words, no income, no project, no sponsor, and no clean record. Adding to the failure was the fact that Meghan Markle herself was unable to meet the financial sponsorship threshold as Harry's petitioner. Though her American citizenship offered legal flexibility, the couple's joint debts, including the $12.5 million in recoupment claims from Netflix and over $3.6 million owed to Tyler Perry, painted a picture of fiscal instability. As deportation proceedings accelerated, Harry's legal team explored potential options abroad. Canada denied fast-track residency. Argentina and Portugal reportedly declined informal overtures. A discreet request to Botswana's immigration authority based on Harry's long-standing personal connection was left unanswered. Even the UK Home Office did not guarantee immediate clearance. According to leaked directives tied to Operation Irongate, Prince William and Princess Anne worked in tandem to ensure Harry would not receive privileged treatment upon return. The message was clear from both Washington and London: you are not special anymore. The gates of Riven Rock did not clang shut with royal ceremony. They simply opened one last time for Harry to walk out not as a prince, not as a duke, but as a man under federal escort. At 2:42 p.m., on the 26th of January 2026, a white envelope was taped to the security kiosk outside the Montecito mansion. It bore the seal of First Republic Bank, now operating under J.P. Morgan Chase, and it marked the final chapter of the Sussex's Californian dream. It was a notice of foreclosure, not a metaphor, not a legal threat, but an official, court-approved action to repossess the property. The estate, once purchased in July 2020 for $14.65 million, had not seen a mortgage payment since September 2025, according to court filings unsealed in Santa Barbara County. Despite initial help from private guarantors, most notably Tyler Perry, whose contributions exceeded $3.6 million in private security and housing advances, the mounting debt, coupled with the collapse of media contracts, left the Sussex household exposed. For Meghan, the unraveling had begun weeks earlier. As Harry scrambled to salvage his immigration status, she convened a series of private meetings with her legal and PR teams in Los Angeles. By January 20, her personal brand, American Riviera Orchard, had been incorporated separately under her sole name. Shared accounts were frozen. WME representation was quietly restructured. According to internal sources, Meghan was advised to protect the remaining assets and detach legal liability from pending federal decisions. Harry didn't understand what that meant until he found himself packing alone. On the night of January 24, in what would become the couple's final moment under the same roof, Harry reportedly entered the master bedroom with one rolling suitcase, 2 duffel bags, and a look of disbelief. "We need to go tonight," he had said, according to a source close to the Sussex circle. "They're not just revoking the visa, they're clearing the property. JP Morgan isn't bluffing." Meghan, however, was calm, composed. She stood near the window, watching as paparazzi circled in helicopters above the estate. Her response, delivered with surgical poise, would shatter the final illusion Harry held about their partnership. "You have to leave. I'm staying for the children, for the brand, for the future." She cited Archie and Lilibet's schooling, their American citizenship, her new product launch. And with that, the alliance forged against the crown was dissolved not by force, but by quiet abandonment. That same evening, Harry attempted to transfer partial property rights to Meghan in an act of desperation. Legal filings blocked it. The estate was already under pre-seizure review. At 8:06 a.m. the following morning, DHS agents arrived with the final removal directive. Harry was ordered to vacate within 24 hours. What followed was less an exile than a logistical collapse. With no private plane, no diplomatic escort, and no official allies remaining in Washington, Harry was handed a one-way commercial itinerary. British Airways Flight BA 268, departing LAX on January 26 at 1910 PST. Witnesses at LAX reported Harry arriving in a rented black SUV, unshaven, wearing a baseball cap and gray hoodie. He carried one suitcase and no entourage. He stood in line at TSA. He removed his shoes. He declared no items. He did not qualify for the private suite. Around him, cameras clicked. TikTok lives bloomed in real time. A woman whispered, "That's the prince." Another replied, "Not anymore." He boarded first class alone. While Harry crossed the Atlantic, Buckingham Palace prepared its response. The statement would go live at 8 GMT, January 28. The final edit, sources claim, was personally reviewed by Princess Anne and Prince William the night before. The phrasing was deliberate. "This is not a family reunion. It is the legal consequence of his actions." No fanfare. No emotional cushioning. The royal family would not pretend this was a return. It was a retrieval. Behind closed doors, Operation Iron Gate had moved into its final phase. Frogmore Cottage lease, terminated. Royal security clearance, revoked. Border alert status, activated. Harry's fingerprints, once archived under royal diplomatic protocol, were now tagged as those of a high-profile civilian under standard scrutiny. The rain was falling in hard, relentless sheets, gray, metallic, cold. It slicked the tarmac of Heathrow Airport and dripped from the overhang above Terminal 5 like a warning that this was not welcome. At precisely 13:47 GMT, on the 27th of January 2026, British Airways Flight BA 268 from Los Angeles touched down on runway 27 liters. It was a routine landing. No diplomatic escort met the aircraft. No Royal Protection Service prepared the concourse. No Windsor blacked-out Jaguar waited at the foot of the stairs. Because Prince Harry was not returning as a prince. He was re-entering the United Kingdom as a civilian deportee, processed under standard UK Border Force protocol, flagged internally as a high-profile returnee with a history of security risk, per an updated advisory issued as part of Operation Iron Gate. As passengers disembarked, Harry stayed seated until nearly the last minute. He had no entourage, just a carry-on and the dull echo of what used to be status. Gone was the HRH, Gone was the diplomatic passport. He was now Henry Charles Albert David, DOB 15.09.1984, place of birth, London, England. He passed through immigration like any other person except his name triggered a flashing yellow alert on the system. A junior border force officer, clearly briefed, called for a supervisor. A quiet side room ordinarily used for minor visa discrepancies was cleared. There was no interrogation, no incident, just paperwork. Harry was instructed to wait. Then came the formality that made it real. A customs declaration. No special status. No diplomatic immunity. He had become what he once dreaded most. Just Harry. Outside the terminal, the press was camped in vans and behind barriers. The Daily Mail had already published a breaking push notification, exclusive, Prince Harry touches down in London after US deportation. And the crowd began to swell. Airport police formed a perimeter, but the palace had issued no transport. For the first time in his life, Harry had no official vehicle, no military-grade security, no royal extraction team. He stood just beyond the sliding glass doors of arrivals, clutching his luggage, as raindrops streaked the glass and blurred the flashes of cameras. Inside his jacket, his phone buzzed. His hands were shaking as he opened it. He wasn't calling an aide. He wasn't calling a lawyer. He was calling his father. 13:58 GMT, Clarence House. A leather-bound phone buzzes atop a carved mahogany desk. On its screen, Harry, private line. King Charles was sitting in his study. Behind him, shelves of family history. Before him, a son in crisis. His hand hovered over the green icon. For a long moment, he hesitated, torn between blood and duty. The father in him whispered, "Pick up the phone." The king in him said, "Hold the line." Then, from the shadows of the room, another figure appeared. William, the Prince of Wales, stepped into the light, eyes fixed, voice like granite. "Don't." "And he's in trouble," Charles whispered. "He made it our trouble," William replied. "Now it's his. He's still my son, and he is a traitor to the crown. He sold our legacy for a podcast and a paperback. He tried to burn the house down, and now he wants a bed in the ashes?" Charles stared at the phone. It rang once more. "We do not negotiate with terrorists," William said, eyes locked on his father's. "That's what you told the Home Office, wasn't it?" And then, silence. The king let the call ring out. The line went to voicemail, and the last door slammed shut. The phrase had circulated in the palace for months. Iron Gate. But few outside the royal inner circle understood what it truly entailed. By January 2026, the plan was fully in motion. Drafted under the joint authority of Prince William and Princess Anne, Operation Iron Gate was a defensive maneuver not against a foreign power, but against a rogue royal. Its key provisions: Frogmore Cottage. Lease formally terminated on January 15, locks changed, and Windsor security updated to deny access under all circumstances. UK Border Force Directive. Flag Harry's passport for standard processing only, with no access to diplomatic channels or fast-track clearance. His arrival was to be treated as that of a private citizen with a controversial legal history, not a protected royal. Security protocols. No activation of royal protection. All prior emergency access codes and security clearances assigned to Harry were revoked. Even Clarence House, his father's residence, was placed under Level 2 security lockdown during the time of his re-entry. Communications blackout. No official comment from the royal family until after public confirmation of his presence on UK soil. The goal was not to greet, but to contain. For Prince Harry, it meant only one thing. There was nowhere to go. He had burned bridges with Scotland Yard. Private accommodations in Windsor were closed. Highgrove House was inaccessible. Friends, once sympathetic, were silent. Even long-serving palace aides, once fond of the cheeky younger prince, now viewed him as a strategic liability. Meghan did not return his calls that day. Her official statement, issued via a publicist, made no mention of the deportation, only a reaffirmed commitment to her brand and her children's well-being in the United States. Daughter Annie to Wanas Fiver Annie. And so, as the black cab he hailed merged onto the M4, Harry was left staring at the endless gray blur of England's motorways. A kingdom once his birthright was now a fortress, impenetrable, unwelcoming, final. By the morning of the 28th of January 2026, London had not yet thawed from its winter chill, but the temperature in the press rooms of Fleet Street was boiling. Prince Harry's deportation wasn't just news, it was a reckoning. The tabloids had been waiting, and now, they struck with unrelenting precision. Prince Harry returns to the UK, not in triumph, but in disgrace. facing the full weight of his past scandal by scandal, lie by lie. The story was headlined in 72-point type, placed beside a photo of Harry at Heathrow, hood up, head down, alone. But the image was only the start. What followed was a forensic dismantling of Harry's public persona, one misstep at a time. His memoir, Spare, was requoted as a self-indictment. His past substance use, mental health struggles, and emotional volatility were no longer framed as vulnerability, but as evidence of instability, entitlement, and self-destruction. But it was the return of pre-Spare scandals that stunned even the most jaded royal watchers. Summer 2001, 16-year-old Harry caught drinking and using cannabis in the backyard of Highgrove. The News of the World reprinted archival photos, and the infamous quote from Clarence House confirming the incident. January 2002. Harry was sent to Featherstone Lodge, a rehab center in South London, for a day of understanding. The story had been softened at the time. Now, it was reframed as early evidence of repeat legal risk, the very kind that led to his U.S. visa crisis. 2005. The world still remembered the image. Harry at a costume party in Wiltshire, wearing a Nazi armband and grinning, then merely in poor taste. Now it was circulated globally as an early symptom of a defiance problem unchecked. Within 48 hours of his return, multiple international outlets, Le Monde, Der Spiegel, El País, ran retrospectives titled The Rise and Fall of a Royal. On TikTok, clips of Harry's past altercations outside London nightclubs were edited together with the caption, "And he thought he'd win against Buckingham Palace." As the world devoured the headlines, the crisis behind palace walls turned from silent containment to active strategic defense. Prince William, according to a source close to Kensington Palace, was furious at the tone of recent media stories, suggesting the royal family had abandoned Harry. In private meetings with senior advisors, he allegedly said, "The public needs to understand we tried everything. I tried everything, and he weaponized it." William's resentment wasn't just about the headlines. It was personal, and it ran deep. According to aides, William had begged Harry not to publish Spare. He had even asked their father, Charles, to freeze distribution rights when the first draft was leaked to publishers in 2022. When that failed, and when Harry described William in the book as temperamental, press-driven, and emotionally repressed, it broke something fundamental. "I was his brother and his mother," William allegedly told Princess Anne in late 2025. "He wasn't just my sibling. I was the one who held him up when he collapsed, and he turned me into a villain for money. Mestadori, the final C in Tesverming, in the final C intelliging." Now, watching Harry return not as a royal, but as a cautionary tale, William's mission shifted, from protector of family to protector of institution. The royal household, under the direction of Sir Clive Alderton and Princess Anne, issued no defense of Harry. Instead, a quiet but chilling line was circulated internally to press liaisons. "The crown does not shelter saboteurs." Quote, "In also days Vanand." That phrase began appearing in editorials, opinion columns, and off-record statements quoted by palace-friendly reporters. Even King Charles, typically the moderating force in the family, offered no public comment on Harry's return. His last known action? Ignoring his son's call from Heathrow. The press caught wind of it, and it only fueled the narrative. A former palace staffer summarized it bluntly. William closed the door. Charles let it happen. Anne reinforced the lock. End quote. 2000 described Joe. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Meghan Markle remained eerily silent. Her spokesperson issued a single-line statement. "The Duchess is focused on her children, her business, and the privacy of her family." But Meghan's actions spoke louder. Her name was not listed on any legal appeals related to Harry's visa or property foreclosure. Her personal brand, American Riviera Orchard, was formally incorporated as a sole proprietorship on January 12, removing Harry as a legal affiliate. Publicists rebranded Meghan's narrative as Resilience Amidst Chaos, with talk show interviews in the works without Harry. The image was sharpened further when TMZ published an exclusive from a friend of the couple. She told him to go fix it. He didn't, so now she's moving forward. By January 28, at 18 GMT, Prince Harry had checked into a rented cottage in the outskirts of Oxfordshire under private security, but without state protection. It was the first time in his life he had no crown authority shielding him. No home, no office, no country, no plan. As he unpacked his belongings, one suitcase, one laptop, and a phone full of missed calls, it became clear that Harry hadn't just lost his visa. He had lost his place in the story. The very idea of Prince Harry, the rogue royal, the rebel, the freedom fighter, had been consumed by its own myth. And all that remained was the man, alone in the country he once fled, now forced to confront the full cost of burning bridges without a way back. The man once called the People's Prince now walks through quiet English lanes, unguarded and unspoken for. In the space of 72 hours, Prince Harry lost his home, his country of residence, his immigration status, his public narrative, and perhaps most hauntingly, the last sliver of his family's trust. In a rented Oxfordshire cottage, no coat of arms, no diplomatic seal, Harry exists not as a royal in exile, but as a man suspended in personal purgatory. He is not in prison, but he is not free. He is not silenced, but no longer heard. His phone remains silent. The door to Clarence House remains shut. Frogmore Cottage has been cleared and sealed. And the United States, once his promised land, now lists him as inadmissible under INA 212 A2, an irreversible status, unless extraordinary waivers are granted. The fairy tale has fully collapsed, and all that remains is fallout. Back in California, Meghan Markle is busy repositioning not as a duchess, not even as a wife of, but as a standalone American figurehead. Her brand, American Riviera Orchard, is moving forward with strategic launches, lifestyle teasers, subtle PR campaigns, and a rumored solo appearance on a streaming platform to reflect on the journey. She has not spoken Harry's name publicly since his deportation. Insiders close to the WME agency describe a new communication strategy. No retrospection, no apology, just forward motion. It is clear, Meghan is no longer tied to Harry's downfall. She is marketing her survival. The woman who once described herself as fused at the roots with her husband is now operating as a single entity, protecting her brand, her American citizenship, and some say her children's distance from a father branded as unstable and legally compromised. Speculation has begun. Is this a temporary separation, or the precursor to formal divorce proceedings? No documents have been filed, but silence has its own legal weight. Within the royal household, Prince William has emerged as the de facto executor of institutional will. It was William who drew the red line, William who refused to sign any diplomatic support letters, William who ordered Frogmore vacated, William who told his father, "We do not negotiate with terrorists." And it is William who is now receiving growing praise from within Whitehall, the palace, and even Commonwealth partners for his ability to protect the institution even from its own blood. While Charles remains the king, it is clear that the balance of influence has shifted. The decisions that matter, the security orders, the crisis briefings, the tone of public engagement now pass through William's inner circle. Kensington Palace is no longer a satellite. It is the engine. The king watches. But the heir commands. According to a palace aide, Princess Anne herself has aligned fully behind William's stance. "We gave him years," she is said to have told Charles privately. "We absorbed the attacks. We swallowed the lies. We remained silent. But you cannot negotiate with someone who profits from the destruction of his own house." King Charles has aged visibly in recent months. The stress of cancer treatments, political balancing, and the emotional wreckage of his youngest son have taken their toll. But it was the moment at Clarence House when he let the call ring out that marked the final fracture. Sources say Charles still checks Harry's contact photo, still stares at the old WhatsApp threads, still asks staff quietly if there have been any messages. But he no longer makes the first move. He has made peace, painful peace, with the idea that Harry may never return, not truly. And if he does, it may be too late. No member of the royal family has been more consistent, more disciplined, or more decisive than Princess Anne throughout the entire ordeal. She was the first to reject Meghan's self-branding within the firm, the first to advise against a royal wedding with untested loyalty, the first to commission internal security reviews into Harry's disclosures post-spare, and, according to internal sources, the architect of the Anne File, the dossier of past drug use, security risk, and behavioral instability, quietly handed it to DHS. While never public, her role in Operation Iron Gate is known among senior courtiers. It was she who convinced William to act swiftly, not sentimentally. And it is she who now advises the king, behind the scenes, the blunt moral compass of the crown. Her message is simple: duty first, always, even when it costs us family. As the dust settles on this chapter, a question lingers, one that will be debated in history books, classrooms, documentaries, and dinner tables alike. Was Prince Harry a victim of a cold monarchy, or the author of his own tragedy. He had wealth, he had love, he had freedom. And yet, he believed that freedom meant burning bridges and blaming the architects who built them. He attacked the institution that fed him, the family that shielded him, and the legacy that held him upright through scandal after scandal. And now, he stands alone, not in exile but in irrelevance. On the evening of January 28, as the rain continued to lash the windows of his temporary cottage, Harry stepped outside for air. There were no photographers, no press fans, no shouts of "We love you, Harry" from American supporters. There was only a man in the mud, one boot sunk into English earth, the other still damp from the Pacific surf he left behind. He looked at the sky, no stars, only gray, only silence. And in that moment, perhaps for the first time, he understood what the crown really is.